Hello and welcome to another weekly update. I'm at home this week, which is nice, and the weather is terrible, but never mind. Plenty of things happening this week as well. So let's start with a blog post I put out earlier this week, all around App Studio in Microsoft Teams. Now, I've done a video and a blog post previously about App Studio, but actually it's changed quite a lot in what it can do now, and it's now taken on additional roles. It's got sort of 3 or 4 defined areas of interest now. So I thought it warranted another blog post just to go through those things, remind you that it's there. If you're doing any kind of applications in building applications in Teams today, then you definitely want to look at that. It makes building applications easier in a couple of different ways, and not just for the final, I've built my application, now I need a manifest file, let's use App Studio. Actually, you can use App Studio throughout the development process, especially if you're, I've been finding this out this week actually, if you've got code that does things when users install an application. So if you've got first run experiences that need to happen, being able to quickly uninstall, reinstall your application in order to get those events triggered is really useful to be able to do that with App Studio. So I went through that again, and I've done a video as well. If you prefer a video to a written blog post, then that's linked to it from the blog post as well. So whichever way works best for you, you can go and get that content. All right, so something else that really cool that happened this week. So if you do any kind of development around Teams, around Office 365, you will probably be aware of Microsoft Graph by now. If you're not aware of Microsoft Graph, you should stop listening to this, go and do some research and come back again. Microsoft Graph has changed really kind of a lot about how we do development against Office and against Microsoft tenants, and how we gather data, how we work on data. It's made a big difference. That feeds into the tools that we use around Graph, so things like Graph Explorer. But also third-party tools. So I'm a big fan of Postman. It's an HTTP kind of response request mechanism. It's like a little tool that allows you to send HTTP requests and get the responses. So if you're working with Graph and you are trying to figure out which API calls to make and what should be in the body and what sort of response you should expect before you actually build it into your application, that's where you'd use something like Postman. There's also Graph Explorer. So Graph Explorer is like a really cut down version of Postman, only for Graph, lives on a web page. What the Graph team have done, specifically Jeremy Thake, Principal Program Manager at Microsoft, is they've kind of brought those two worlds together. So they've taken all the samples out of Graph and they've turned them into Postman collections, which is really cool because Postman is not a Microsoft tool. It's a kind of open, I'm not sure if it's open source, but it's certainly a kind of community free thing, but it's certainly not Microsoft funded. So that is way better than them trying to build all these bells and whistles into Graph Explorer and make it like Postman. We already have Postman, like what's the point? What they've done is they've taken all the samples out of Graph and made them available as Postman collections, and they've put them all on GitHub so you can download them. That's super useful. It means that you can take the samples in Graph Explorer, which, Graph Explorer is great, don't get me wrong, but if you start getting a bit more advanced, you start wanting to tie calls together and take the token, you've got your auth token, and feed it through again and again and again, or have multiple calls sort of layered one on top of each other. That's where you can't really do that kind of stuff in Graph Explorer, but you can do it in Postman. So so really good resource. If you're not using Postman, you should go and look at Postman. If you are using Postman, then you definitely want this. If you do anything with Graph, like I say, it's a repo on GitHub, so you can change it, you can fork it, you can make it better. So like top marks to Jeremy and his team for doing this. I think this is really cool. It's going to make everybody's lives easier as well. It's the right thing to do, I think, bringing that functionality into Postman rather than going the other way. So top marks all around. That's a really, really useful thing that's happened. So I definitely think you should go and look at that. All right, so what else? So again, there's lots happening in Microsoft Teams app space at the moment for applications that are coming onto Teams. It's getting to that kind of critical mass point of we're seeing more and more people pile in, more and more applications being written. people changing how they're working around teams as they take on these applications and feed them into their flows and feed them into how they do business, which is really good. What that means is the app space and the list of applications is constantly changing. So this is another blog post around a list of integrations that you should look at if you're using Teams. So I've done one of these before, I've talked about one of these before. I think it's worth bringing this one to your attention again, just because things change all the time, new apps come out, but also, so there's two reasons to look at this. So this is a video and it's a blog post, and the title is 10 game-changing integrations for Teams that you don't want to miss. So as a user, you should review this and be like, well, am I doing everything I can in Teams? Am I making the best use of Teams and its apps? Is there more that I could be doing? Are there better integrations I could be doing? And that's kind of one way of looking at this. But actually, as a developer, you have the ability to look at this with a slightly different hat on and say, let's look at these for ideas, like not to build into my business flow, but let's understand how people are building applications, understand what's possible, what's everyone else doing, what could I do? Could I take that idea from over here, this idea from over here, combine them together, add my own special sauce, add my own business knowledge, come up with a new app? So this is why I keep highlighting these kind of top 10 integration posts, because as much as for anything else, sure, they're good as users for sure, like take that and make your using life, your life as a user of Teams better, but actually as a developer, take these on for ideas. So that's why I'm bringing this back to your attention. And finally, let's talk about Kaizala. So Kaizala's been around for a little bit, and there's always been a bit of like, is Kaizala Go? Is it a competitor to Teams? Is it going to run alongside Teams? What are Microsoft doing with it? What's what's happening with Kaizala? If you don't know what Kaizala is, it's a kind of chat-based app, very similar to the chat-based part of Teams. It's very, very big. I think in Africa and possibly India as well. I can't really remember. But it has sort of a muted reception over in Europe and I think America as well. But it is rising through. The usage of it is rising up for sure. Anyway, Microsoft to come out against in a strong way actually to kind of counter off some of these rumors and some of this uncertainty with a blog post to say Kaizala is rolling out to Office 365. Kaizala will eventually become part of Microsoft Teams. So that's a blog post you can go and look at. It's on the tech community site. I'll link to it. There's not a ton more detail than what I just told you, but that's okay. We'll see this stuff coming when it's ready. I think it's really good though for them to kind of come out and say, this is happening. This is the travel. This scotches all the rumors. So don't worry about it. Watch this space. So yeah, I think it's good because Kaizala chat is actually really, really strong. There's loads of cool little features that would be really good to come into Teams chat. So I'm excited for this. I think it's a good thing to do. But I think more than anything else, I think this blog post is a great way to kind of set the story straight about Kaizala and Teams and how they play together. All right, that's everything from me. Just 30 seconds left, I think, for this video, just to say have a great week next week. A reminder to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing more blog posts as videos. Kind of as I do the blog post, I'll do the video alongside it. So if video format is good for you, encourage you to subscribe and then you won't miss anything. But other than that, have a great week and I will speak to you again next time.